Welcome back to Redefining AI, the tech podcast. On behalf of Squirro, the enterprise Gen AI platform, I'm your host, Lauren Hawker Zafer. Now, what if I told you that the secret to building a multi-million-dollar SaaS company at lightning speed has nothing to do with growth hacks and everything to do with a deeply ingrained drive to solve impossible problems? Now, our next guest, he is living proof. He was a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree, hitting 5 million in ARR in just 9 months. And now as the CEO of Jiva.ai, he's tackling another massive challenge, automating outbound sales to double the B2B pipeline. Now, he's not here with theory, he's here with raw founder stories, real world operator lessons and tactical frameworks that you today can use tomorrow. So let's welcome Gaurav Bhattacharya to Redefining AI. Welcome to Redefining AI.
Yeah, Lauren, thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
We just spoke. You're based in San Francisco. That's correct, yeah?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I'm in the city.
Do you like San Francisco?
I love San Francisco. I love the vibe here. There's a lot of homeless people, which I don't love. Besides that, one of the things I love about being in San Francisco is that there are no crazy ideas. Everyone is appreciative of whatever you're building, no matter how audacious or crazy your idea may sound. And also, we're surrounded by founders. So we're surrounded by innovators. And you can see Sam Altman walk the street sometimes. I've run into Elon Musk before. I love that. I would rather be here than I used to live in Los Angeles before, where you can sometimes see celebrities. I feel like the celebrities of San Francisco are these multi-billion-dollar founders.
There's one thing, though, that you mentioned that, you know, if you tell someone an idea that it's never crazy, but that's supposed to be a bad thing, is it not? Is it not supposed to be if someone doesn't believe a crazy idea is crazy, then it's not actually good enough nowadays?
Oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true, Lauren. I think so. Maybe what I wanted to say was what I've seen, because I've started a company in India and the atmosphere was very conservative. And what that means is that a lot of folks, when you pitch an idea to them, the people who have been there, done that, the first reaction they have is like, how could this fail? And sometimes you need that, right? You need a healthy amount of skepticism to say that, oh, the go-to-market is going to be very hard. The tech is going to be very hard. How are you going to patent it? How is it going to be defensible? Like, why would this idea not work? And you can work on those. When you come here in San Francisco and there's the Bay Area or Silicon Valley and you pitch an idea, a lot of people are thinking about how big can this be? Like, the reaction is not like, how can it fail? But it's like, oh, is it big enough? Can it be the next NVIDIA or Google? Which is really exciting. A lot of times, even the venture capitalists here, their thesis is not that, oh, they invested in a bad company that failed and they lost their money. They always talk about how they missed Airbnb, how they missed Google. They had an opportunity to invest in Uber and they missed it. Whereas in India, at least when I was there, and I've heard similar stories in Europe in venture capitalists, they always talk about, oh, I gave this company $2 million and now they're bankrupt. That's what they remember and they really regret that. Versus like in India, we would always talk about, oh yeah, I made these investments and 3 of them didn't pan out. But in the US, everyone's like, I made Google, I made this. And I think that's like a big difference of like attitude here in the Bay Area.
Do you think there's so many things that we can discuss today, but let's stay with that sort of thought and ponder on it a little. Do you think that it's a false sense of optimism in any way? So there's an analogy that's used with Switzerland as well. In Switzerland, the analogy that's made is sometimes it's like a golden cage because there's such an obvious sense of security from a governmental level and also from a capital level and also other sort of social structures that this analogy of a golden cage is quite fit in. Like, is there any sort of false sense of optimism with optimism as a foregoer?
Yeah, that is so true, Lauren. I do agree. There is a false sense of optimism here. I don't mind it though. I actually enjoy it. I quite like it. I do believe in the abundance mindset. Every time there's something new in a technology wave that happens, there was an article that I was reading and it talked about I think the Wall Street Journal had written it, and it literally had talked about anything new and every century and how people reacted to it, all the way from going all the way back to agriculture and then talking about industrial revolution and talking about the internet. Now it's AI. Every time there's a new wave, we always say, what is going to happen to jobs when AI does all our jobs? What's going to happen to all these jobs when internet does all your jobs, right? And same thing with industrial automation. I feel humans always find a way. There's always work and there's always new things to do. I do believe in the abundance mindset that if we are able to achieve all these great things, it doesn't mean doomsday for everyone. It actually means that we, as a society, we get better. We have more opportunities and more equality and more things to do than before. So I do agree that there's a false sense of optimism. There's two things that the value talks about, which I truly believe in. One is immense self-belief, which I didn't have when I came here. And you hear this everywhere. Believe in yourself, believe in your idea, believe in your vision, and just give it a shot. Maybe it doesn't work out, but you have to go for it. And the second thing that we actually do talk about, which is a really famous book, Only the Paranoid Survive. So we do talk about being paranoid, and doesn't mean that we're pessimistic, but we're paranoid as a society here, at least in the Valley. We say that we are optimistic and paranoid at the same time. We're not optimistic or pessimistic. We're optimistic, but also we have a healthy amount of paranoia that what we are doing may not be as good, or what we are building may not be as defensible, or maybe bad for society, or whatever you can think.
I'm sure that there's a lot that our listeners have already taken from that. So let's look at your work at 17. You mentioned at the start there was a sort of stint when you were in India and you worked on this radiology tool for the Indian government. Now, if you look beyond the technical achievement, how do you think the early exposure to a high stakes sort of life or death problem shaped your definition of, oh, this is a problem worth solving? And how does it now look in the angle that you take to commercial ventures like the one that you're heavily invested in at the moment?
Yeah, totally. So Lauren, I grew up in a family where I lost my dad to cancer when I was 2 years old. Mother was a blue collar parent. So I was raised by a very strong independent woman. And I came across this idea when we were in high school. We had some friends, and my co-founder, her parents were radiologists, and they were always talking about this problem of sex-based abortion, which is a huge problem in countries like India and China. And what that means is once you know the sex of the baby, in lower income households, it's much preferential to have a boy than a girl, because it is assumed that at least in lower income households, boys would be able to take care of the family. They would be able to, go elsewhere, do jobs. And a lot of women empowerment is not really there in Africa. And India is getting much better, but at least the time I was growing up wasn't as prevalent, or there were a lot of issues. So the government came up with a really good law. And the law was that sex-based abortion would be banned, but also sex determination would be banned. And it was started as a pilot project in some cities. Now it's mandatory in multiple states, which I believe is great, right? Like in the US, we have gender reveal parties. Like we try to not know the sex of the baby till we're born. And that's what the Indian government was basically saying. We won't tell you until you have a baby. So based on that, the long story short, there was a really good opportunity for me and my co-founder and some of the other engineers. It was a very big technical problem to really figure out, using machine learning, like which parents could be high-risk parents. And all we were doing is tracking based on different data sets, from knowing some of the confidential data about their background, what's going on. We were doing really intricate machine learning mappings of if there's been a sex-based abortion in their family, right? If we can map it to an org chart almost, and basically make a prediction whether this family is at risk or not. And all we were trying to do is notify the radiologist so that they know it. And we were doing a lot of things with machine learning back in the day. So I think, one, it was a very cool, technically difficult project. So as engineers, we were like, wow, this is such a great project to work on, because it's a very hard technical problem. But B, at the same time, imagine the output would be so great. I think in the time of 6 years, actually we ran it for seven years, but 6 years we were operational and we were in 500 plus hospitals. We predict that we must have saved about 180,000 sex-based abortions at that time. So we truly believe that we made a massive impact in society in India. So obviously we were very excited about that. And my co-founder was a girl, and she truly, it was her baby, and she truly believed in this, and she continued the work even moving forward. So I truly believe that what we did was amazing. And by no means we were a nonprofit. So we were an actual company. We even raised money for it. We were distributing it. We were selling it, just how we're doing it now. But obviously it was a benefit to society. So that was excellent. And the work we're doing is very different and is not as philanthropic, but enjoyed it thoroughly. And we sold the company, but we wish that we would have kept going and even built bigger and better things there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the train of thought that I want to follow there. So the philanthropical element is admirable to an extent that you've highlighted in the data of abortions that didn't actually take place because of the predictive analytical capabilities of you being able to save it. If you look at the data set that you're using in terms of, so people were there was obviously a registration of sex-based abortions that had happened. So you were taking the data sets from the ologists. Was there at any point a desire to look at those that didn't have, and it's a more difficult problem to solve, but obviously there was a lot of the country that wasn't going through an official channel of radiologists. Did you ever think about how the effort there, more of a sort of AI for good, ML for good, could have addressed that? Or
Yeah, we spent a lot of time doing that, Lauren. And I feel, in short, I think we stopped early and we stopped before some of the machine learning and AI became really, really good. So I'll give an example. Because we started working with radiologists and that became our market. So we were working with thousands of radiologists and there's so many use cases that we were just starting to uncover. This is a really big one, right? So if you think about it, there's a law that came out and it was called the PNDT Act at that time. And it was basically saying prenatal sex determination is abandoned by law. So there's a lot of reporting that has to be done. We were using machine learning to automate that reporting. We were also doing risk analysis, risk cases, and flagging these cases all the way to protecting the parents, protecting the doctors. That's one use case. Towards the end of our company, we were actually diving into using radiology and trying to predict cancers and different kinds of cancers. So when we were working with radiologists, we found out that they use ultrasound machines. And ultrasound machines are very powerful. They're very cheap. They're very portable. And with machine learning combined on top of it or AI on top of it, we can actually use it to predict certain kinds of cancers. We started with predicting cancers in kids, and then it from all the way. And CT scans and MRI machines are very expensive, as an example. So if you're in rural areas or if you're in low-income households, even in the US, these machines are really expensive. To get an MRI scan can cost you thousands of dollars, even when you're fully insured. So if you have an ultrasound machine that can capture 96% of musculoskeletal ultrasound, this is like a technique that they use to be able to predict certain kind of cancers. That's the work we had started doing. And imagine that potential is limitless, right? These are the applications. We believe that the machine learning or AI wasn't as good if we had all these algorithms from Meta, right, from OpenAI. Now, all the work that is being done from Mistral and all these other kind of providers, I think we would have made like tremendous progress there. So we definitely feel that we gave up a little bit early. I wish we had kept going and built like a company for multiple decades, and we would have solved all these like really cool applications for AI for good, like you're saying, right?
Yeah. And now you've moved on to something completely different. So you've moved from the nationwide social impact, which is really admirable. I always admire people that have a desire and actually take it in their hands to impact something socially for positive projection. And now you're going to B2B SaaS. How's that change?
Yeah, totally. So I'll tell you like the story of kind of how we got here and what the story, what the background is. So when I came to the US and I obviously wanted to start another company, and because we became data experts, we were working with all these hospitals and we had so much data about patients and doctors, and we had to figure out how to make it confidential yet make it useful. So we had this idea that we can apply this to companies and customers, and we can almost build an AI data layer for them, which can manage the entire data infrastructure and can almost make it available when you want it and whenever it, for example, if any AI agents, now it's getting popular, like AI agents would access certain data sets and can make it useful. So we created this application, and the first use case was, I'll give a simple example. We go to a company, we take all their data from Snowflake, from Salesforce, from wherever they have it stored, and we would first use it to show what the customer health is. Like, are they happy? Are they healthy? Is there any churn risk? And what is feedback that customers are giving that you're not getting from anecdotal feedback because you have data? But imagine we were wanting to build this data application layer that now any of the agents can call at any point of time and you can use it. Obviously, extremely hard problem to solve, and we worked very, very hard on it. And I think that was like the exact direct relationship of what we were doing. Obviously not AI for good, but we were experts at this because we were managing millions of data sets. Now we can do this again, but for a different use case and build like almost like a universal AI data layer that any company can have. And then we can manage it, we can scale it, and build a better version of Snowflake almost, right? That's what we were thinking. We just couldn't find product market fit. It was a very hard problem to solve, and we weren't able to solve it. We ran it for about a few years, like 4 or 5 years, and didn't work out. That was, if you saw like my LinkedIn, it's Involve AI is the name of the company, and it's the same company. And in that time, we actually worked very hard, and we went back to our board and we said, we've given up. Like, we've tried everything. It's not working. We don't have product market fit. We want to return whatever capital we have and just probably do something else. And the board asked us, what are you going to do next? And I said, hey, I've been playing around with this idea because as a founder, I've always been the first salesperson, right? Every founder is usually the first programmer and the first BDR, SDR salesperson. So I said that I've built something for myself that I'm using. And all it does is it sorts my inbox, it replies to my emails, and it does it in my voice and tonality. And I love it. And maybe I'll build around it. And they were like, hey, we love you. And we love the founding team. You should keep going. We might give you a little bit more money. And that's how we started. So we pivoted into this idea. There was an intermediate journey that kind of got us here. But that's how life is. I think Slack was a similar story. They were a gaming company and they had built a chat application internally that became Slack. And we were something totally different company and we had built this internal tool to do sales. And so we just took that to market. So that's our story.
One thing that you mentioned is that you said in the sort of first venture, you didn't have product market fit. But how is that really defined in your own opinion? There's multiple interpretations of having product market fit, not having product market fit. So how did you define and determine we've not got product market fit? Apart from maybe your revenue generation, but how did you define that? Like, when's the point where you say, no, actually, I do not have product market fit?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question, Lauren. And I've thought a lot about this. And there's a quote by Mark Andreessen, who founded Netscape. He basically says that if you have to question whether you have product market fit or not, you probably don't have product market fit. But in a way, what he's trying to say is how he defines product market fit is that you have a product in the market that serves a specific need in the market, and the market wants this specific product that you have. And what I'm trying to say is a lot of times when people start startups and companies, they're going after markets that don't exist. I'm sure you must have heard this, right? People do something and you're like, but do people even need it? Right? Is there even a need for this, a desire for something like this? So do you have a market for this opportunity? And the second question to that would be, does your product, is it uniquely fulfilling that opportunity? Or is it something else? So I'll give an example. Like, people have this habit of watching short videos, right? And let's say that's a unique problem that they have. And now this problem can be solved by TikTok, but now Instagram has Instagram stories as well, right? So is there a unique product in the market that only you have or very few people have that is solving like this market opportunity that you're going after? I think that it has to be both, because sometimes you have a great product and you don't have a market for it. That happens a lot of times. Like, you have solutions seeking a market, and the opposite happens a lot of times too, where you have a market opportunity, but your product is not able to fulfill it. They're actually fulfilling it someplace else. It could be spreadsheets. It could be doing nothing is also like a solution, right? So I think that's like the unique combination is what I define as product market fit. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah. So I'm always curious about that question. As you have experienced yourself, being in an ecosystem of a startup, a scale up, it's a constant conversation. So it's always good to get a little bit of input from others around how you've experienced it yourself and the interpretation. One thing that I also wanted to pick up on that could be extremely interesting is that in your public bio, it does mention that you hit 5 million ARR in 9 months with just 11 people, which is quite impressive in the sense that it's an indication of moving fast.
Absolutely.
And there must be a dark side to moving fast as well in Silicon Valley, is there not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we call it the 996, which comes from China, but it totally is there. And basically what that means is you're working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And to be candid, there's a lot of companies and people I know, and even us, like, we work even more. There's been times where we've been working nonstop for 30 days, I feel, right? And we're working 7 days a week. There is a dark side to it. I think it's very hard to have a good work-life balance. It's also disappointing your spouses. It's disappointing your parents, disappointing your friends, right? Your pets, that you're not playing enough with them. There's truly a dark side without knowing whether whatever you're doing is going to be successful or not, right? There's no guaranteed success at the end of the hard work. And actually, there's a 95% chance that you would fail. And so imagine as a founder, this is a very hard topic, right? I think the market here, or the opportunity here is very different. And I think people just get addicted to it. And this addiction for work is bad. But at the end of the day, imagine one of the things I always laugh about, and I always joke about this with my employees too. Now that I've worked for so long, I'm very candid, I'm very honest. I don't try to sugarcoat things. I'm not trying to make them feel better when I'm lying. So what I do is I'm very candid. I say things are good, things are not good. Here's how I'm feeling. But one of the things I feel founders have a really hard job is they know that the opportunity that they're going after is very hard. There's competition, there's lack of capital, there's all these things that are not in their favor. There's only probably 1 out of 100 chance of success. But how do you tell that to your workers and your team? And how do you tell them to work extra hard or be extra smart, whatever that is? It's actually, Lauren, the thing is not always hard work, but even smart work is hard because sometimes you have to convince the folks you're working with that they have to go above and beyond and change the ways they're working. So you're challenging them to either work hard or smart or both at all times, while knowing that there's only a 1 out of 100 chances of success and still keeping that optimism. And I think that's why Silicon Valley is able to do it, because of that fake extra, like the golden cage kind of optimism. And it is, right? Unless you truly believe that that 1 out of 100 chance is there for it and for your staff, I think people wouldn't just be able to do it.
Very good input and food for thought. There's also, from a psychological perspective, because there's a lot of psychological consequential elements of what you said as well. So you claim that, you geek out on, and not claim because you probably do, it's the wrong word per se, that you geek out on outbound psychology. And having been a CMO, I am also fascinated by how you're going to answer this next question. But beyond the subject line and call script, what is the single most misunderstood psychological principle that if B2B teams truly understand it would fundamentally change their cold outreach success?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. And I would say that this concept applies generally to all sales concepts. But I do believe that there's a concept of fear of missing out that is very psychologically deep-rooted and embedded in us as Homo sapiens. I feel that is something. I'll give a really short example. I read this book called Psychology of Influence by Robert Cialdini a long time ago. I'm sure as a CMO, you might have heard of this, and talked about a few or 7 or 9 principles about different things. And fear of missing out was a big thing. One of the examples that I've always seen is when I'm waiting for the metro line. We have a small BART, we call it in San Francisco, right? You must have seen it. So there's so many, like they literally come in like 5-10 minutes, but every time I'm going and one is leaving, the immense reaction is to chase after it. And I know that I've been here for so long and everyone's been here, and I see everyone running and make a sprint for it when they know there's 5 minutes later, there's going to be another one that's going to come. And it's just so psychologically deep-rooted and embedded in us. The fear of missing out is true. And now the way that we do it at Jiva AI, that we can do it in emails, I'm sure you've seen these offers, right? Offer is going to expire in 24 hours. Everyone knows the offer is not going to expire in 24 hours. There's an immense reaction to it and a need to attain it. Obviously, we should do it in a very intuitive way, but also with high integrity, not try to make fake offers and fake deadlines. But I do believe that there's a fear of missing out that we can play around with in cold outreach, but all the way in the sales cycle. So we try to practice it heavily. And what we try to do, Lauren, is we have a simple discounting technique, which is very true. And all we say is that if you are able to act by the end of the week, then we're going to give you a 25% discount on your first 3 months or your first, and saying that that's all, right? Like it's every week, it's open every time. And the number of people who are able to either make a yes or a no decision that quickly for us, it's amazing because they don't drag the sales cycle for us. And I think that's been like a really big game changer for us. And we use it everywhere. I know I didn't answer your direct question about cold outreach, but just a psychology thing that I have seen works very well everywhere at every stage of the sales cycle.
Do you think that works as well in a B2B context? Like I can see the immediate impact on B2C and a B2C market, but do you think that would also work as well in a B2B market?
It does work very well in the B2B market, Lauren, because I'm not saying that it converts better. Like I'm not saying that. So I'll give an example. It just converts faster. That would be the thing. So I don't think the conversion rates go up, but the conversion time goes up. So what that means is, let's say if you have 5 deals or 10 deals in the pipeline, and you have an offer for them or you give them a deadline that, hey, this expires by this Friday. So I'm not saying that 7 would convert if traditionally 5 would have converted. But what I'm saying is that they would convert faster. What that means is, Lauren, they're able to make a yes or a no decision quickly because they're able to rally the troops internally. They're going to go talk to their CFO and maybe get shut down faster. Instead of getting shut down 3 weeks from now or 6 weeks from now, they are able to get shut down this week, where our champion basically goes and like, I shot John a note and John's like, I'm not going to spend any money for the next 3 months or next 6 months. So talk to me after that. Perfect. We have an answer or a no decision. I'll give another example, Lauren. Basically, my brother was looking for jobs recently and he worked at one company for several years. He's like the opposite of me. He's like the non-entrepreneurial version, worked super hard, But he was interviewing, and I tried this with him where he was saying that I'm interviewing, but people are not calling me back. They never respond to me and they're ghosting me. So I'm like, okay, why don't you just give them a deadline? And he basically came up with an arbitrary deadline where he said that, hey, by Friday next week, I'm going to make a decision whether to continue staying at my company or to choose one of the new offers. Just want to let you know, no pressure, you guys decide. And literally, whatever 20 places that he was running this interview process, they all got back to him. And it's not that everybody was like, we're going to give you a job, but everybody was able to make a go, no-go decision because he had this arbitrary deadline that he was following towards. It works in your life too, Lauren. I'm sure if I keep a deadline that I want to lose weight by this time or this deadline, I think there's like some psychological effect that happens where even you're motivated to continue doing it or not doing it. But it's about helping you take action with deadlines or kind of with that fear of missing out.
Great. So we're encouraging all of our listeners today to take action on whatever it is you need to take action on. And Gaurav, it's been fascinating to have you here on Redefining AI. I hope everyone else has enjoyed the episode as much as I have, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you for having me.